Ladies and gentlemen, it's okay. I'd like to welcome everybody out to our American Fork City Council meeting this evening. It's May 27th of the year 2025. For the public record, we have two council members that will not be with us tonight. They're both one's out of the country, one's out of the state. So Councilmember Hawley and Councilmember Carroll will not be with us. That being said, if you do the math right, no government politics, that means that this group will have to be unanimous in order to advance or to pass something on the action items. So it takes me away from being a tiebreaker, which I'm okay with. So, anyway, we'll begin the meeting as outlined. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Hunter, and then I will conduct the roll call. If everybody would please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to be here. We are so grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy and for those who have, as we celebrated this weekend, made the ultimate sacrifice to protect those freedoms, both near and far. We're grateful, Father, for the blessing that it is to be an American and to be a citizen of American Fork City. We are truly grateful for all those who stand for freedom and for the opportunity we have to govern ourselves this night. Father, we pray a blessing to be with those who are in harm's way, both here locally as well as abroad. Be with them, protect them, keep them safe from harm and accident, and be with their families. Comfort them and let them know that we stand shoulder to shoulder with them through these challenging times. We're grateful, Father, for the leadership both of our city as well as our country, and pray a blessing to be with both. Bless us that we might be able to govern ourselves with civility and in a way that will guide the affairs of our city and that we can be proud of for decades to come. We're mindful of those who came before us, who made decisions on our behalf that we are the recipients and benefactors of. We pray that we might be able to be likewise do for others that will come after us. We're so grateful, Father, for the police and fire and first responders who protect and defend our safety here. We're grateful for all of our staff and for the time and energy that they put in, for the countless thoughts and efforts that they put in on behalf of keeping American Fork a great place to live, work, and play. We pray thy blessing to be with us this night. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Okay, I'll now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Hunter.
Here.
Councilmember Hawley is noted as absent. Councilmember John.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll, also absent. Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, and we can conduct affairs of the city. We'll now move on to item number 2. We would invite anybody that would like to make a comment to the mayor, the council, or our senior staff. We'd invite you to come forward, state your name for the public record, and please keep your comments brief to about 2 minutes. But we now have an open mic. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period, and we'll move on to item number 3, our city administrator's report. David.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank our cemetery committee and members of the cemetery who did such a good job at the cemetery in preparation for Memorial Day and preparing the program that we had yesterday. It was a fantastic day, and I know it was enjoyed by many, and I just really love the American Fork Band and what they do for that program. It brings such a great spirit into that meeting, but I'd like to thank our public safety departments for all that they do as well. It was a tough day because they go a lot of different directions on Memorial Day, and then they have calls that they have to attend to as well. And so just like to tell them thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you, David. We'll now move on to our council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very similar to David's probably. It's hard to not speak about what, transpired yesterday with Memorial Day. And I mean, we live in such a great city. It's we don't get everything right, and I don't think any of us profess to do it right, but gosh dang it, that Memorial Day program and the fireman's breakfast, God, there's not a one of us that sits up there and watches that take. In fact, Clark and I tried to lean over and comment to each other. Both of us were just blubbering idiots, and we just looked at each other and looked away and just tried to keep our eyes downfield. But it's such an honor to be, in fact, as my wife and I were driving there, we contemplated how many cities in the country have the name American in the name for their city, and it's very few, as I recall 3, if I remember correctly. And what an honor and privilege it is to represent the freedoms that are ours because we live in such a great country, and to recognize those not only who serve on our behalf, but especially those who made that ultimate sacrifice. It's been my pleasure to be a part of the council, and years down the road, decades later, I'll just truly cherish the opportunity we had to bring Chipman home a year or so ago, and what I don't know, it means something when there's no longer missing in action as we recognize his name, and our city's full of people who are deserving of being recognized. We had a family member who had to be treated yesterday by our paramedics, and they just jump right in, flipping pancakes one minute and putting the 12 lead on somebody else a second later, and it just, I don't know, I couldn't be more grateful for being here, and it goes across the board from sewer to fire to library to our all of our, clearly, the ones that seem to get the recognition most often are right in the news and in the forefront. But I remember very much our water department on Christmas Eve out in the trench of a freezing ditch trying to get a water line shut off that was leaking, and I just am so honored to be a part of our staff and to be shoulder to shoulder with them, and that's my report.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember John.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll echo Councilmember Hunter's for the program and the breakfast both. He just didn't look my way and didn't catch me. I was doing okay till the speaker told a couple of those stories, and then it got to me, and I was the same way. Great job, Mayor. Thank you for those remarks. It was you set the stage and talked about all the heritage that we have here, and I appreciate that because we do stand on the shoulders of those that went before us. I actually had, as Councilmember Hunter mentioned, I wanted to comment for Sam Kelly and his crew. We had a homeowner on Saturday was out in a backhoe and dug a water line in, and the water line went out to the on-call number, and then he was a little bit out, so I got the next call, and we were over there and got it taken care of and fixed. But they're there, like Councilman Hunter said. He wasn't in the middle of a trench in the freezing, but we were down in an excavation trying to cap a pressurized water line, and our Public Works group, along with Public Safety, but our Public Works kind of gets unappreciated sometimes, and they really were out there all weekend. And I talked to Barry, and he didn't go a single day over Memorial Day who was on call without having to come over and take a call. There was an issue every single day. And he comes up with a smile on his face as he drives up. He was,
You're serving breakfast at 6 a.m. there.
Yeah, and he was serving breakfast, then he was back out painting his door, and then he had to run in and take care of this so we could get that plugged off. So just want to say kudos to our Public Works Department also, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Tater?
It'll be a broken record, but I don't mind, and I hope none of you will. I love our community. The things that take place here, they may not be unique, but man, we have a wonderful community. I have been attending the Veterans Day program, the Memorial Day program for years, and it's largely the same format every time. and it never disappoints. It never feels more familiar and more less than, it's just incredible. And I happened to, as we were walking off the stage after the thing, and I want this to be part of the record so that we can get it taken care of, Doc Callahan came up and started talking to me, and I, know Dr. Callahan pretty well. He moved from our city a while ago, but he said, Clark, we just need to make a change on the honor roll. He said, see this right here, and it was his father, Callahan, missing in action. He said he hasn't been missing in action for 15 years. We brought my dad home and buried him. So I just want that to be part of the record so that we can get that corrected and off the honor roll for him. And then the other thing, as I was walking out, I had 3 different women come and talk to me about, I wish you would allow the wives and the mothers to stand up. And if you recall, when we first started doing that, we invited everything from Gold Star mothers to families of those people who had people serving the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Air Force, etc. And for some reason, I think we've either forgot to mention that or whatever, so they sit there and they said, we'd love to be able to stand up and honor our husbands or our brothers or our fathers. And so I think we need to reinstate that when we play those songs, because that is the most moving part. Well, I don't know how you get beyond taps and all of those things and the emotion of the speeches and that, and what the mayor had to say from someone I know, Harry Barrett, and just, it's a wonderful thing. So if we can make those changes, and I think because the opportunity will come again here in November for Veterans Day, we ought to be able to make those changes. But and then the cemetery, I just really appreciate Mark and his team for all that they do up there, for the way it looks, a tremendous amount of work that goes into that. So many people count on that as just a place of peace and refuge to be able to go and sit there and relax and contemplate. And our cemetery with all of those trees lining that main road, it's beautiful, and I appreciate all of the hard work and effort that goes in to that. And then finally, the Fireman's Breakfast just never disappoints. And we got a new switched out our Ring doorbell for another doorbell, and it has a neighborhood thing, which is quite annoying. But if someone sends out a message about, hey, what's going on, someone will answer. Sorry, this is taking too long, but I got home from the Fireman's Breakfast. It was 6:40, something like that in the morning. And I got a notice that people were saying, hey, what's the siren going off for? Is there an air alert? What's happening? And by the time the day was over, there were probably 45 responses that's the Fireman's Breakfast in American Fork. That's Memorial Day tradition. I just couldn't believe how many people were talking about that. I thought it was awesome. And so anyway, that's all I have, Mayor. But I'm just so grateful to live here and to be a part of this community. It's fantastic. So.
All right. Thank you for that report. Number 5, the mayor's report, much of the same thing, a feeling of just incredible pride. I did speak for a few minutes, but it caused me to research a great deal into certain people, and I really, the theme of the day was our community honors those. And so I wanted to keep it kind of tight to American Fork, and the stories that I was able to read and research and find were just humbling. I was picturing in my mind Main Street in 1918 when somebody was brought home, or 12 soldiers were leaving and they said that the band came out, and the Main Street had the appearance as if it was the 4th of July. And here we are today, 2025, and we're just doing our very best. And I think, again, you know what, let's pat our back, everybody in the city, that we still do things like this, and we'll continue to do them. And the most solemn part of that whole thing is when 54 names are read, and you just think that 54 names, families, you can only imagine the tears and the story that goes behind every one of those names. And so we are very fortunate. And we're here today and we're able to enjoy, a good quality of life because of people like that they were willing to just put it all on the line, and they actually did do it for us. So, it was a very humbling day for me, for sure. And then I love our cemetery. I think you can almost judge a character of a city from a cemetery. And when I go up there, I just see the old graves, the new graves. I see flags. I see veterans. And I'm thinking, there is a snapshot of a city. I can drive into a city, form my own opinion from their cemetery. And I think our cemetery speaks a lot about our heritage of this city. So that is the mayor's report. Excuse me. We'll now move on to the common consent agenda. It's been asked that we remove the first two items, which is the approval of 2 sets of minutes. They'll be back on our next council meeting, so that's items 3 through 6. If there's any questions, we can answer those, or if not, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the common consent agendas, pulling items 1 and 2.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember John,
Second.
second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? I will call for a vote. Councilmember John,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, item number 1 is a review and action on a resolution approving the renaming of Art Dye Park to Mary and Art Dye Park. This has been something that's, I think it's been in the making for several months, and we've been waiting for this night to happen. And I was at Art Dye Park, at the park, a few weeks ago, and I was watching 2 of my grandkids play soccer, and that park was full. In fact, Beehive Park. There couldn't have been more going on in this city than what was going on around that area. And the smiles, the people enjoying themselves, being outdoor. And it just so happened we took my wife's grandma. So, in a sense, we had 4 generations watching 2 little kids play soccer, with the first generation actually knowing Mary Dye. And I talked to her a little bit about this. And I'm just, my mind's eye, I'm certain that they see this. And I hope they feel the sense of gratitude. This is the jewel of our city. I don't know what we would do with it without it. I mean, here, within a month, we'll have 20,000 people down there with the carnival. Really, the biggest event that will happen in our city will happen in that space. And we owe a debt of gratitude for the seed that started it all. And that was Mary and Art. And we're speaking to, I'm going to ask you to stay there, but in a minute I'm going to have you come forward and at least introduce yourself, okay? But we have a little something prepared that might show a little bit of the time and what happened, what has happened and transpired. I'm going to tell you right now that the chairs and the people sitting in these seats has changed I don't know how many times over. We just happen to be here today, but there's been a lot of councils, mayors that have progressed this along, and I'm just glad that we could be here to be part of it. So. You know, I've done some reading on Mary in the last week, and I'm in awe at her life story. Well, she did not have an easy life by any means, and I know you know that. But I was talking to a neighbor, and I said, "Tell me about Mary," because she knew her. And she said, keywords. I can't remember every word, but here's the words: kind, helpful, nice, and probably the word that I think stuck out to me was she was so sweet. And I thought, I hope people can say that about me, years down the line. So, yeah, she was quite a woman, and we're going to finish this up right down here. I'm going to ask the council to come. Let's move right here. We want to do something a little official tonight, and then we're going to have you come up, okay? It's been said sometimes that government moves slow, but we were slow to get here. We're going to make this bound tonight. We have the resolution, and we want to pass it, and we want to sign it, and we want it notarized, and we want you to take it home, okay? And we're happy to get individual copies for you if you'd like. Now, I know that these two council members are going to want to have their signature on this, and they're out of the state, so you can, maybe I'm going to ask you to leave it with me. Let me have them sign it, okay? Because they will want to be a part of it. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move that we push forward the resolution for the renaming of the naming of the Marion Art Dive Park.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Hunter. Any discussion on this motion?
My only comment, Mayor, if I could,
Make it.
It's exactly the epitome of what we talked about earlier in the comments. This is who American Fork is. It's exactly the epitome. We appreciate your family. I've always known it as Art and Mary Dive Park. I thought it was, but I could not be more honored to be a part of the team that gets to actually officially name it that and make sure we're recognizing that. There's just, again, talking about standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. This is exactly what we're talking about. We appreciate your family and that dedication, opportunity to recognize her.
I think also, the recognition for you four wonderful ladies that have been here and the extra work. Jetta is my aunt and has sent me documents regarding Art and Mary Di and kind of the story and the background behind that. I know Sally has worked extremely hard to bring this forward, and because of you, this is kind of brought to the forefront and is happening, and this is such a gift to our city of what happened, and we're so grateful for all of you for helping make this happen and bringing it forward. It's a gift, and we appreciate you so much for that.
I was trying to think the first time that I walked what is now Art Dive Park, and it was the early 2000s to change Hatfield, when he was showing me a ride, he was showing me ditches.
I'll bet. That's probably irrigation.
It's irrigation. And up until about 2010, we had an irrigation ditch that I had to run right through the middle of what's now the Art and Mary Dive Park. So I was up there all the time and got to see it at 2 o'clock in the morning and have the cops chase me and wonder what I was doing. But it truly is a jewel of our city. And so we're grateful for your family for the sacrifices that they brought to us. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion and I have a second, and I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Excuse me. Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember John.
Aye.
I'm going to ask you to sign this. We're going to have it notarized because at least we can make it law tonight, okay? Or I guess it's binding with 3 council members. And then I will get the others to sign that as well. 27th of May, 2025. All right. We're going to ask you to come, we're going to stay right here. I'm going to ask if you might just introduce yourself. How are you related? And then I think Sally's got a few things. We're in no hurry here. I'm not going to rush this meeting for this. So as long as it's, okay, say what you want, or just say hi, all right?
So my name is Jetta Rasmussen, and Mary was my great aunt. So her sister Kate is our grandmother. Mary and Art didn't have any children. However, her sister Kate and her husband had 10. So there's plenty of us. And we're just thrilled that this is happening. It's been a long time coming.
Hi, my name is Janice Roberts, and Aunt Mary was my dear aunt. I remember her very well. My dad always told me I looked like her, and when I was a little girl, I didn't think she was very pretty, and it was really sad for me. But when you're young, you don't understand how character means so much to you in your life, and I am so proud to be her niece, and our family all loves her dearly, and we are so thankful for you to taking care of this and taking care of it so quickly tonight. Jetta Marie and I will never have to go past that park and grunt when we just say Uncle Art's name there, so thank you so much.
My name is Donna Barnes, and my mom and dad met at Art and Mary's little cafe called the Cottage Cafe. And my mom said when she was in high school, she would never, ever marry a farmer from Lehigh. And she did. But I just want to say one thing. I walked into this building, and it made my heart sing to see how you have preserved this very beautiful, wonderful, historic building. It means so much to this community, and I only wish we had more beautiful buildings like this in Lehigh.
My name's Darren Bell, and Aunt Mary was my great aunt as well. And my mom was the 8th child, and Aunt Mary said to her sister, "You've got so many kids, why don't you just let me borrow one?" So I think my mom was really special to Aunt Mary because in a way she was a little bit adopted by Mary, because my mom spent a lot of time in the store and worked there as a teenager. And Mary really shaped the life of my mother. She loved her deeply, and I knew through my mother how much Art and Mary loved their community and how they connected through their store. And it was a wonderful world that my mother grew up in because of Mary.
My name is Sally Fowler Frankham, and Aunt Mary was, of course, my aunt too, along with my sisters Jan and Donna and the rest of us. And I remember going to Art and Mary's house as a child and being afraid of their dogs, mostly being afraid of their dogs. And I just remember I was a little bit afraid of Uncle Art too, because he scared me. And he always had a cigar, and I was just a little kid. But I have always wondered, since I moved back to Utah after having left the state for many years, I always wondered why it was called the Art Dye Park. And I had somebody come up to me the other day who didn't know I knew anything about this and say, "It's so dumb. Why are they spending money to rename the Art Dye Park?" And this was a person from American Fork. And I said,
They weren't from Lehigh.
They were a transplant, I promise.
and I said, "Well, let me tell you a little story." And so I politely informed them about the history, a little bit of the history. But anyway, we appreciate this very much. And it is kind of an appropriate day to talk about this with Memorial Day being yesterday, because we loved Aunt Mary and we loved Uncle Art, but we loved Aunt Mary more, honestly. But it's wonderful to have this honor for her and for Uncle Art too. I have a few other comments. Would now be a good time to do that?
Right now is great.
The other comments that I wanted to add was that this part of Mary's story that maybe some don't know are that her family joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Denmark. And they immigrated to Utah in 1898 after their conversion. And at the time, Grandma Kate was 6 and Mary was 4. And they made their first home in Spanish Fork. But after 2 years, they moved to Lehigh, where my great-grandfather worked in the UNI sugar factory. And so in 1904, Mary and Kate's mother, Jensina, became ill, and she passed away of symptoms of tuberculosis. Within a few months, her husband, the girl's father, died. So this left these 2 girls as little Danish girls who barely spoke English, and they were orphaned in this relatively strange environment away from their homeland. And one of the missionaries who baptized the Christiansens was a man named Ole Anderson, and he was from Pleasant Grove. And he was basically appointed as the executor and the caretaker for these children, these little girls. And they were apparently not kind to the little girls. And after a short time, the Andersons, the Rasmussen family in American Fork asked to adopt Aunt Mary. And the Rasmussens were a prominent American Fork family, and they loved her, but they did not adopt Kate, which was our grandma. So Mary was raised in American Fork, and in Lehigh, Kate was raised and basically hired out as a maid to families from Lehigh. So their story was a really tragic story. And all their brothers died too, before they were basically left orphaned. And so Grandma became a maid, and Aunt Mary was loved and adored by the Rasmussen family, and eventually, of course, they created the soda pop business and the cottage cafe. And anyway, the love story of Mary and Art Dye is something that some people know, that he was a mail order husband, kind of. Is that right? Pen pal, and eventually husband. And they successfully grew this company together. But her family, the Rasmussens, were the ones who really helped sort of launch their business. Wouldn't you say that would be accurate?
You mean Art and Mary's business?
Yes.
It was the Rasmussens' business. They already had it. It was already a thriving business.
So we owe a debt of gratitude to the Rasmussen
Yes.
family, absolutely. And I just thought it would be important to mention this about Aunt Mary and Grandma Kate, that, you know, they had a rough time when they were children, and due to their, their grit and their courage, they managed to make it in America, and both married well, I will say. So those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor Frost. Appreciate it.
I'm going to ask Kim, how much of that was virtual? I mean, if you go by and you don't see it perfectly like that, we wanted to make sure you know what it was going to look like. Some of it has already taken place, others are coming, correct?
The
signage.
All the signage is up.
Okay, well, I stand corrected, it's there. So,
Thank you very much, and thanks for that video. That was great.
we'll make sure you get a copy of that. So, you know what, I don't know what else to do, it's just, I mean, let's clap, and we're going to clap for Mary, okay? All right. Pictures, should we?
Cameron, right?
That's right.
Nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, indeed. Likewise. Let's just get this out of the way. Yes.
Thank you.
very much.
You're the button, sure. Yeah. grandparents, I know that they've been in New York there. They did. I hope it was partially good.
That is so awesome. I agree. You know, I drive through that park 10 times a week. I'm not 10, but it's, I've done anywhere now.
Water can't all be bad, right?
Oh, it's great. Water's amazing.
Okay. Thank you for the congregation for staying with us. All right, we'll now move on to item number 2 is a review and action on a commercial site plan parking reduction request for 500 East Automall Drive, Business Center, Plat B, located at approximately 452 East Automall Drive. So, Patrick, why don't you get us started here? Well,
Thanks,
there's
Mayor.
some questions, so let's.
Yeah, so this item went before Planning Commission last week for their site plan approval. Planning Commission is the approval body for site plans. They made a recommendation of approval for the site plan. All of the items, bar one, met requirements of code. So staff didn't have any major issues. There are still some outstanding red lines that are conditioned as a part of that. The issue that's before you is that the applicant, as they prepared their site plan, was not able to meet the parking requirements, and they're here seeking an approval of a reduction of parking. The code does permit a request to be made to City Council after a recommendation of approval from Planning Commission under 175133, Part D. Just for some further background on the project as well, it was originally approved and is currently constructed, but it was originally approved as an office warehouse building under the PI1 zoning designation. Last year, the applicant came forward and requested a zone change, and the project was approved, and that zone change was approved, and they had to come back in then later last year to start the process of getting a new site plan approval because of that change of use from planned industrial office warehouse to the GC2 general commercial requirements. There's in the packet, our team have broken down on their code, they've broken down the requirements for the stall count per the different use, because there's a number of different proposed tenants in the different units within the building, so they're broken down based on that. And then the applicant as well has provided kind of their breakdown per use of what that reduction would be for the different uses. Overall, what staff was looking at for the total count of stalls, and this would be excluding the gymnasium use, just simply because the requirement in code is to understand the occupancy, and we didn't have the full occupancy because that's provided at an architect at the occupancy stage when it would go through for a tenant improvement through the building division. So without that use, the requirement's 139 stalls. The applicants brought forward including the gym use and all of the other uses, and they're seeking a request to bring their overall total to 89 stalls.
So Patrick, I think this is good that we discussed this. I mean, Ernie, why don't you go ahead? He had some questions, and let's.
Yeah, I printed out the pages. My real concern is the gym, really, the athletics. And my concern is I know that on yours, you put 4 mats times 20 people, so that's 80 people. What about exhibitions or competitions? That's going to be a lot more, and where are you going to put those people? Because when you go to an exhibition, I mean, my little girls were in dance, and once a year, twice a year, you have an expedition. Everybody gets to come in and see, grandpa, grandma, aunts and uncles, and everybody's there. That parking could really balloon And I'm not even sure at that point the 139 would cover it, but what are your plans? That's a real concern of mine. I think probably the day-to-day operations would probably work with 89, but that's even real tight. So what?
You know what, I'm going to ask the applicant to come forward, and if you wouldn't mind, just state your name and just stay right here with us.
Yeah, no problem. Jared Hewish, and with Steve Davies as well. So we've explicitly been through that because talking with Dan in the building department, you know, occupancy load determines what you can and can't host inside of the building. And so we went to the tenant and originally and said, hey, this doesn't support events, exhibitions, etc. And he says, that's great, we don't need that. Matter of fact, they came to us originally and said, we just need 33 parking stalls. That was all they needed. So they won't be doing any, like, it's restricted as far as our lease with them, that they don't do those events or exhibitions, etc. So, matter of fact, so it is used day-to-day kind of thing in the evenings, and they have a policy, and this is just the way they do it, probably because parents can be difficult to manage. And I think probably historically, because they come from a smaller space down the street, they don't let parents even come in. So they just drop off, like we designed the north part of the building, it has a little island where they drive around and drop off. They come in the athlete entrance, they call it, and then they just go back out. They can go back through our easement or our egress behind through Maverick or just out onto Automall Drive. So, yeah, I mean, we've thought through that certainly because Dan was like, hey, if you did things here, it would be a whole different classification, seismic upgrades, and it's like, no, we're not even thinking about that kind of thing. So they're restricted to just normal operations. They won't be doing any of those events or competitions. Historically, we had another group. Similarly, they moved to a different place because the water table was too high, a gymnastics facility. And they had considered that, but same thing, it's just the parking. It just doesn't work for the site.
Mayor, can I ask Heather a question? Heather, I mean, can we put something in this approval that they're not able to do it? I understand with your lease and everything, but
Sure.
that's just your lease, and that's between you and them. This is a big concern. Could we put restrictions on it, and are they enforceable if we did something like that?
So, Councilman John, it's at this point, no. The discrete issue that's before the city council is a reduction in a parking requirement that's found within the city code. Getting into the weeds and the minutia of that is not before the city council tonight.
Mayor, I mean, this was brought up, so in terms of the enforcement, this was brought up in the planning commission minutes, and they talked about how you mentioned, Mr. Hewish, how they couldn't have competitions here, and how one of the other tenants would see maybe 6 people a day because they were exotic automobiles. There were tenants there as well. So my only thing is for us is our enforcement just by virtue of your lease that you have set up. Because again, we can't get into the minutia, but that's your enforcement. You're making sure that does in fact happen, that there aren't competitions, et cetera.
Yeah, and what happened in the planning commission, it was presented as if, and like for example, just case in point, like Rival Athletics is a cheer facility. So, but because the code doesn't prescribe specifically around cheer facilities or gymnastics facilities, it's kind of, I don't know how you call it, like it's fit into a health club facility. Like there's not.
That's as close as we could get.
Yeah, that's right. So that's like Vasa, right? Squat rack, bench rack, the tower where you do the pull downs, all these things where you have, and they all drive, and so it's a 3-to-1 ratio. And so when it came back to a tumbling facility and cheer, the spacing between, I just wanted to make it clear to the planning commission, like, yeah, it sounds like a big reduction, but it's because we're kind of retrofitting a different classification, different parking scenario to this. So, it would probably fit within a normal, if this was its own classification of parking, it would probably fit within that. But there isn't one to kind of say, hey, what should this be per recommendation of International Building Code or whatever.
Right.
And so it was like, hey, yeah, it's a big reduction from what we're trying to make it fit into. And ultimately, it came down to, from their perspective, they needed 4 mats. They can fit 20 kids a class per mat, plus 20 of staff, which is your 100. And then fitting that same 3-to-1 ratio, it's the 100 down to the, a third, 33, if you will. And that's exactly what they had requested originally for parking. So it just kind of fit their occupancy load to be at 100. Anyways, so there's no, and to your point, back to the TIs, number one, that the building department's going through, there's no infrastructure, there's no bleachers, there's no like mezzanine with viewing.
No place for people to sit.
There's no way to hold it. It's just a way for them to, and these guys travel, I mean, candidly, these guys go to like, I don't know, some of you may have neighbors or grandkids or nieces, whatever, that are at this facility. I'm texting Sam, whose wife runs it, and he's in Florida every other weekend at these national events, and they're winning these national. They go to like the like the big conference areas where they have these big events with all the people. They couldn't host anything there anyways.
This is primarily a training facility is what
that's all
I
it is.
understand.
That's exactly right.
So with that in mind then, and we can't do that, and I believe the planning commission motion was with one stipulation, that if it ever changed hands, it would have to come back to the planning commission to be able to stipulate, what would go in,
What the use is.
The use of the tenant, yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
the tenant.
The planning commission voted 100% affirmative on this, so I'm ready to make a motion if
I
we have any questions.
For Heather, is that, if a tenant changes, then does that automatically, or David, can you tell us, does that automatically regenerate a new site plan so that we have to look at it again? Here's my concern, we've got parking issues all over the city. And the last thing you need is parking in Maverick, you can get your cars towed and park across the street further than they're free. Those are the kind of complaints that we hear.
Yep.
And this is a reduction of a third. I understand, I mean, I'm looking at all the numbers and I think I get it. But
If the use changes,
The 134 number I gave out doesn't have any calculation in there for
For the
rival
gym.
athletics at present, because we didn't have a.
because you didn't have information, so.
Yeah,
the-
so
the
it would be,
number that they
if
gave
it
us-
is 33, it would be marginally higher than that with the other uses included.
Say that again, please.
So the 134 number I gave you out is for all of the, it's for the parking requirements for all of the other uses without including rival athletics into that overall number. So it's 134
Plus
what
So we're
rival would
not
have.
short,
Because we
we're
could
not
give,
short 50 stalls.
it could be.
We're short
50
50 stalls plus
what
whatever
rival's
rival
requirement
athletics
is, but we don't
would
have that
require.
until we have an architectural calculation. So that's the challenge within code right now.
Okay, I misunderstood that.
Well, I can speak to that specifically. So we already have our tenants, and so I think part of it also, so for example, next to Rival Athletics, which is the 100 occupancy load, which is 33 parking stalls, you have a group that's across the street, or down the street, it's called Diamond Auto. They do like ceramic wraps on vehicles, and they do like tires and, these kinds of things. So what the challenge is that it's conditioned the suite as a retail suite, general retail. Now, when you get into the architectural drawings and the TIs themselves, you go into each use within that space. So they have about, I'd have to look, 800, 1,200 square feet of retail. So they'll have a vehicle in the front with like the things, the bells and whistles on it. So it's a retail, so if someone comes in, they have a desk, they have the
It's a
rims
showroom.
and- Yep, a showroom. 90% of it is other, storage, office, and then where they prep everything in the back. So in their case, I think we'd have to look at the math, but it's like 14, 17 parking spots.
15 for Diamond. is the
15,
number-
exactly.
Is the number, yes. They've got one stall, so they'll just be working on one car at a time.
No, in the back, so they have bays in the back in that area. So the way the
One
retail.
stall.
Oh, okay,
Front,
one
one showroom stall.
Okay,
So,
one showroom
yeah,
stall. Okay, gotcha.
Diamond's breakdown is 1,100 square feet of office, 617 of retail, and then 8,500 of warehouse, which would give 3.5, 2.7, 8.4 stalls per each of those spaces to give you a total of 15.
What's J5 Brands?
It's a
T-shirt,
t-shirt manufacturing, so they, or t-shirt retail in the front.
Okay.
And then, because all the retail has to be supported by light manufacturing and production of that to support it.
Right.
So in the back, they have their hot presses, et cetera. They make all the shirts for, the graphic tees for Bucked Up and just different things like that. And then in the front, they want to get into the retail side of it. So in the front, they have a retail aspect where people come in and, you know, owners of companies will come and say, oh, you can do my swag for me, great. Like they have their own, you know, retail in the front and then light production in the back. And so the nuance and the reduction part of it is you have, like, say, for example, Diamond Autos, say 12,000 square feet. So when you apply a retail calculation to that, like the whole thing, if the whole thing was retail, like Trader Joe's with a little bit of, yeah, it looks like, oh, we need 60 stalls for that. But when you do the actual calculation of the footprint of the actual suite and the tenant, it's 15.
Okay.
So that, I'm just trying, because like when you think about like, oh my gosh, what's this huge reduction? Like there's not even we have 105 stalls, we don't even need that many, we have 89, because like, for example, same thing with, at the very end of the unit next to Maverick, we have Car Guys, which is down the street.
Right.
You know, they're not GMC, they're
Right.
not, you know, so it's like the same thing, they have a little, they have office in the front, more like an executive kind of area, if you will, for people, high-end people purchasing expensive vehicles. Then they have like an area in the back to service them, and then the vehicles that are in the warehouse, so it's out of the elements, because right now they're out parked outside, and these are, you know, $100,000, $200,000 vehicles. And so, again, we're applying, the reason for the reduction is per code, GMC, if that took that, or, you know, Subaru or something, would be 48 stalls or something like a lot.
Yeah,
Like
42.
Yeah, 42. I mean, maybe they have 42 people in a month that visit. I don't know. You know, it's just it's a little more nuanced than just like apply the code as the code is written, because it is an auto dealer. They do sell vehicles, but they're not turning over lots of vehicles because they're selling $80,000 to $150,000 vehicles. So it's just a little bit nuanced. Hopefully that makes sense. It sounds like a big drop, but it's, you know.
I think I see from my standpoint where you're going, I get that. My concern is if something changes or if something happens and we start having parking issues.
Sure. Yeah,
What are our ramifications? Do we have any? Heather, do we have it? What can we do at that point? If we approve it now, there's nothing we can do past that, correct?
That's correct. That would be the decision of the council.
But it sounded like, to me, my understanding was that if they change the use, that then they have to get approval for the new use. That's
As to this applicant,
Right.
yeah.
So 105 stalls currently.
135 requirement.
But they
No,
have
he
a
said-
hundred.
how many
The
do we
current
have?
layout,
We have 105.
there's a
Yeah,
current,
105 stalls.
you've already asphalted 105 stalls.
And striped, yes.
And striped, yeah.
Okay.
The requirement without rivals consideration is 139 based on code. So 139 plus
So
interest.
we're, you know, that's the part that I did not catch. I'm reading it, that again now and realizing that I had missed that. I would argue, I would maybe agree in the part we haven't really talked a ton about is that J5 Brands, and Auto Diamond. That space probably is high. I don't know that you need 97 total stalls if you're doing unique, you know, detailing and ceramic coatings and things like that. I would agree, that's probably extensive. But again, bringing that down to something about, let's see what that, sorry, I'm having to scroll through here.
And just so you know, the math that was done, that's presented, that's based on the architect's design per city code.
The 89?
Yes.
Their interpretation, yeah, based on.
like,
The breakdown of the uses
the actual-
within a unit. So if they have the office and everything.
Right. Yeah.
So they just take the use and then they say, hey, what's city code require? And then it kicks out that number.
Yep.
The only thing that is different that isn't city code is the gymnastics when you say 20 people per mat, 4 mats. And that's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that was then dictated by occupancy load, which is the 100.
And they start at 4 PM?
They're in the evenings. They start 4:30 and then they have 2 different shifts. They do a 4:30, I think, to 7, and then like a 7:30 to 9:30, something like that. So it's kind of a flex in the evenings.
You know, I'm just going to say this, you know, you probably you can maybe see the sensitivity that we have for parking, and it's across the board. I mean, it is just, we've been burnt. And see, boy, so I'm going to ask you, Patrick, you've been in, you know, really in the trenches with this. Tell me your thoughts. I mean, could you say, this is a recommendation, I can recommend yes on this and why, or vice versa? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't want to be the person who hides behind the code, but I generally don't have a whole lot of discretion within code of, you know, these are the uses. One of the things we've looked at is the major challenges of parking that you brought up, Mayor, that we have in other parts of the city, not too far from there. One of the things going for this is that its location is directly off of 5th East. It doesn't have a huge residential component to it, but it is shown as one of our major employment centers. So there are major implications for traffic flow in and out of that area at peak times. If the parking's not sufficient and it can't be contained all on site, the spillover could potentially impact all of that. Pro to that, you know, that's kind of the con in that situation. One of the pro things is understanding the different uses. I get where Jared's coming from about all of the, you know, what we have and what we were given early on that gave us our parking calculations is footprint of building, different uses overall per unit, but not breakdowns within that. That came at a later point, and we try to be as flexible as we can by looking at each individual use within the building, because a lot of times that can bring that number down for people. Different cities operate differently. Some people are like, just overall, that is your number for your whole use, and they don't provide that flexibility within there. It really is a kind of a decision for the council to look at all of the potential impacts. On a staff level, I'd hate to be the one to make a recommendation of saying, hey, it's good, and then it come back in a few months of a major issue.
You know what? I'm just going to back you off right there. I'm going to pull that question right back. I can see your.
I feel like I'm sitting across the table from the chief.
Can I answer for him?
No.
So, Mayor, maybe it would be helpful just to remind the city council about the provision and the language that you're applying right now. Helpful for the applicant as well. It essentially says the city council shall have the authority to increase or decrease the number of off-street parking spaces herein specified upon finding, after you've conducted a study, that the use characteristics that are being proposed on that site warrant that type of an adjustment, whether the adjustment be an upward adjustment or a downward adjustment. So as you guys talk about this and consider it, that's the standard that you're applying right now.
Mayor, if I could finish just a couple questions or thoughts, I guess, that I've had. The comment that I...
You can go ahead and sit up there. We'll pull you up if we need to.
The comment regarding, well, I can get into semantics about J5, 97 total stalls seems extensive for me. I think 17 seems low. I mean, the reason they're next to Car Guys is so they can do a lot of high-end cars, and they're going to have that, right? There's a lot of value to that. My point is, it's somewhere in the middle of that, in my mind. My gut feel, take it for whatever that value is, somewhere between 97 seems up here, pendulum, 17 seems like over here, pendulum. Somewhere in the middle of that seems like, okay, there's probably a number that makes sense. The thing that I struggle with is that I've never once pulled into a place and gone, wow, there's just loads of excess stalls around here. Not one time. Every dance community that I have girls in tumbling right now. In fact, I was talking to Ernie about this as I was driving home. And I'm like, oh, I gotta pick my daughter up. She's at tumbling and she gets out at 6 o'clock. Guess where we all parked? Every handicap stall, every striped stall that's the open space, the front of the curb blocking the entrance to the space. It just doesn't happen. My concern is we're in the process of creating way more traffic on Automall Drive as a frontage road for American Fork. Everybody on the lake side of the freeway is now going to come down that road through the new the new roundabout that's being constructed currently, and traffic flow in my mind is going to exponentially grow, which is great for business, right? The concern that I have is when between 4:30 at drop off, which is conveniently timed right as we're having traffic problems in that area, and 7:30 or 7, whenever, right? Those are times, and I can imagine, I mean, look at and this is maybe a poor example to put on your shoulders, but there's a right in, right out in Highland for a dance studio. They got plenty of parking. The problem is the flow. And so what do? They've taken a bucket of cement with a sign in it that says, don't come in this way, because the right in, so if you're coming down the road and you didn't know any better, you'd pull in there. So they try to create their own, and it's just, I've yet to see it work well with less than what's already required. And I'm looking at that Automall Drive, everybody trying to pull into that north entrance going, I love the idea of having that island or roundabout, but so what happens, and now I've got, young children running across the road that's now supposedly a commuter frontage road that we're intentionally trying to drive traffic through, and I struggle with it. I don't think it's 100 and, whatever the math is, 134 plus 50. I don't know that that's the number either. But I mean, 105, I don't know. Maybe the point is that maybe that was the council's direction, is that maybe I don't have enough information to have the study done that allows me to make the decision that I feel comfortable saying, let's get to that point. I guess that's where I stand, is that we've had a lot of studies that said that TOD should work. I don't trust that study at all. I don't trust anecdotal studies by me as a council member who happens to pick his daughter up at 6 p.m. either. But I know that I've yet to see one that works with less stalls than, at very least, what's in. So that's, I guess, where I come from. That's my comment.
Let's talk it out here.
So, self-proclaimed parking Nazi here. And
You keep
most
saying that.
Most of the places, hey, I need you to pipe down. Most of the places that we're running into that are clearly TOD, residential areas, et cetera. I look at this and I listen to what Heather says. I look at the efforts that have been made for egress out through the back of Maverick when we talked about this. How long ago did we talk about this? This came before us.
I don't think I was here. That's why I'm a little, I didn't know. That was the other.
I think it was. It was like a year and a half ago. I don't know, something like that.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant I apologize. I thought you meant the change from a PI1 to a GC.
So, and I look at that, I look at the situations of the auto dealerships, the t-shirt thing isn't gonna have a lot of traffic in there. They're just not. They're a screen printer, they're not. People aren't walking in to look at retail, and, those deals are all done. And Brad, you know this as well. Mayor, you know this as well, because this is your business.
Yeah, I don't like them there. No, I'm just kidding.
But
But let me just follow up on that point. We have one of the biggest operations in the county, probably. So it's about 10, 12, maybe 15 employees at peak, and with an occasional customer. But it's huge.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I agree with Clark.
Go ahead.
And so as we go through this and we look at this, and if we're using our discretion and we're basing our decision on the use of those buildings, it does make sense. If there's a retail area that's this big, then they shouldn't be required that. I agree, Ryan. I don't know where that magic number is. And if that gym is operating, my logic isn't going to hold water, but these folks know what they're doing. I doubt they're coming in just to get the space and that's it. They're doing these things all over the world. I think they kind of have an idea. And I remember when this was first brought to us, and we talked about the effort to move people out. I hope kids aren't having to cross Auto Mall Drive to the north. You know, I hope they aren't. I hope that's not an issue.
I mean,
The U-turn's in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I know, but turning in, I'm gonna come down Fifth East, I'm gonna hang a right in front of Maverick, and I'm gonna try and turn left with all the traffic
On Auto Mall.
on Auto Mall into
Yeah.
your parking lot.
We're restriping it, because per that.
You understand, I'm just saying,
So
right?
with your restriping, will you still have 105 stalls with the?
Oh, sorry, restriping Auto Mall Drive.
Oh,
Yeah. So there's a turn, dedicated turn.
And Ben's putting the light in, I guess, new timing, because they're aware of these traffic things, so they're aware of it, you know, of getting people out of there, so.
I guess what I'm saying is, I think we have to use discretion in the usage. And if that usage changes, I don't know at that point, if we can come back and say, okay, parking's got to increase, or you're not going to be able to have that business there, whatever that may be. I think we've got to be able to use discretion, you know, per business in there. I admit, we have to stand behind the code. Patrick and I had this conversation this morning. And because I had someone call me and ask about, you know, will they be pleasant or will they be, you know, and I said, we have the code. That's what we have. There is no favors. We have black and white, and that's the code. But this, we are allowed that discretion. And I think with the way, you know, these applicants are, the screening, the two-car dealerships, you know, I don't know. I feel like 105 is something I can live with. Just based on, because they won't have to come back out onto Auto Mall Drive every time. Soon, if we have that, then they can come back out to Auto Mall Drive and either go right or left, you know, whatever, you know, there's a way out. I don't think it's ideal, but I don't think it's terrible either. So, looking at that and taking all those things into consideration, I think I can go with it.
Live with
Can I-
105.
Can I ask one more question that I meant to ask earlier? It was regards to the changing it from PI1 to the GC. I don't recall that conversation. I did not. Can you give me some context for that? Are we,
Yeah, so it was.
do I need to? Okay.
It was August of last year. The building was entitled, I think you guys had commenced construction prior to the zone change.
It was fully built.
Yeah, and so it was built with the office warehouse approval. And I think that's where some of the challenges are probably coming in with all of this, because if it was a fully open layout, a lot of this could be reconfigured. But they're kind of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole because of the format that the building was built and the site was laid out, rather than it being what we see for some of the other GC2, further north in the city. So I think that's where some of the challenges are coming out. A lot of it makes sense, but the site was laid out and built, and we're trying to retrofit those uses back in there. And this is the typical issue that we find with a lot of properties that are built with one zoning in mind, and then they change after time. We do what we can to try and help with that, but these are the general issues that we have. Because there's generally a much lower parking requirement for a
PI1.
for tilt-up than there is for,
Right.
because of the major warehouse component to that.
Yeah.
You're not going to have
Yeah,
a
if
major
it's
parking
5
requirement.
Yeah.
But
pallet racks
this
instead of-
this puts some of that on its head, and that's where it can
That's
be
where it's hard.
problematic.
Yeah. I got a thought here, and this is where I'm landing, and I don't even have a vote, but I do have a mic. So,
You
I'm
have the
thinking,
mic.
from what we have right now, we have, I would say, they're pretty high-end tenants. I mean, as far as at least your cars, and it's incumbent on the landlord to make it work, or they're not going to have a tenant beyond whatever contract you're going to sign with them, and I don't know what that is. And that's putting a lot of faith in people, and we've had that before. We've had them come and we've had them work, and some haven't worked out. Primarily, our biggest challenge is in residential. But I am seeing as well, even the offset in time is something that is a kind of a plus in my mind. 4:30, most businesses are going to close down at 5. Some might be revving up. So this is a ball and a strike. It's not like we can say it's going to be ever like this again, but based upon the application we have right now that's in front of us, this is a discretion of a council. And that's my 2 cents. I think you know where I'm leaning towards, but only because of that. This is not what I would call a slippery slope, because the next application can be totally different. And so this is kind of based upon today, what we have in front of us. This is workable.
Mayor, with 105 strike stalls currently, why would we lower it to 89? Why would we not say 105 as a minimum anyway? I mean, I'm just curious why, at the very least, we wouldn't say.
I think that's just what you
105.
calculated out as
so-
needing
so-
off of the uses.
Again, you have to take a step back. Normally, you do site plans before you build building.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. But
So,
because we've got
but-
a finished building and now we're deciding what we're going to put.
Yeah,
in
but
zone.
even more so, like, it was a PI1, so it was planned industrial. And when you have a PI1, you would just generally overlay kind of like some metrics. 20% office, maybe some mezz, some office office front, warehouse in the back. You're gonna get like a number, 105. If it's retail, it would be whatever the math is. Or if it was retail, whatever, you just do this calculation. Those are just general parameters, because ultimately your TIs and your tenants are going to dictate your actual parking. So all we've done is we've gone to the actual tenants that are coming in, and we're taking those architectural plans and taking the city code and applying it to it. And so we're fine with 105. 105, we're not going to block the other stalls. We're just saying, per the city code and per the architectural design and the layout, it only needs 89. Except for the rival part. Because
we don't
but
have
again,
that.
it's health clubs though. Like you can't
I know.
tumble into each other. Like
Maybe down the road, we need to look
Until-
at some code
until-
to address these, correct?
Until
Cheer,
these
'cause we
rates
got a lot
require
of
them
them.
to start opening and
Cheer.
doing yoga during the day, and now it is full of, well, I'm totally making this up, but the reality is, nobody's gonna not, if they have the ability to turn revenue between 8 and 4 with other use in the same space that they have mats, or, if it comes to it, they're gonna generate revenue however they need to. So calling it not a health club, well, that is what it is. I mean, it's some
Yeah.
level of that.
So you're gonna leave 105 stalls, right?
yeah, they're
That's the
built.
number.
I mean, I've had to restripe them because they were a little twisted here and there. But yeah, they're not going away. We're just saying we're taking the code as written and taking the architectural design as drawn and putting them together and saying the building as designed per your code only needs 89, but we have
But
105.
except for rivals. Rivals are kind of all by itself, because we don't have.
Because it's
code.
based on occupancy load, exactly. But they don't have more than 80 kids in the building at a time, plus, it's a lot of staff. There's not 20 staff. But that's just a calculation. Because when they came to us originally, completely independent of architectural occupancy loads, and they don't know that stuff. They said, our lease, we need 33 spots. And we're like, we looked at 105, we're like, oh yeah, that's fair. We can do that. And so it just so happens that the occupancy load and the mats, because they're going from 2 mats down the street to 4, and their classes per mat are 20 kids per class. It's just kind of like, it's just the math that they told us. Plus, they have 12 classes, that they do over the course of the week, and they do them, that's why they break them up, so that would be whatever that is, 4 per session, in the early evening and then later in the evening. And so that's just kind of their math. They just do it based on the amount of kids in the classes.
All right, council, we know the math tonight, not only this math, but it needs 3. So I think the only way, maybe we talk some more amongst us, or we put out a motion and see where it goes. That's,
I'm okay with 105. My concern is we don't have an enforcement. I can understand what you're saying, and if 105 is there and you think you only need 89, I think I can live with 105. But how do we keep what happens? I guess it's incumbent on you as a property owner to make sure they don't want to put bleachers in and do competitions or exhibitions.
For the lease.
sir, can you state your name and please come to, And your relationship to the project?
Pardon? I'm one of the owners.
Okay.
That's 500 days. Yeah, the, in the lease,
Yeah,
it
can we-
specifies.
Name?
Steve Davies.
Okay.
It specifies the use, and if they were to use it beyond the cheerleading, then they're out of their lease agreement. And so we can take action at that point. I might mention too, that 3 of these tenants we had when we were a PI, they'd come in, and we talking with Patrick and the group. They said this really, we're struggling with those 3 tenants anyway because they're already in the PI1 zone and they're illegally in the PI1 zone.
So that's why we rezone.
And so he said, let's change that based on the tenants that we still have. We changed it to the to the general commercial zone. And then, of course, that precipitated the site plan approval. So, we've dealt with these tenants now for 7 or 8 months, waiting for this to happen based on changing the zone, based on recommendations, so.
Okay. All right, let's,
Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can make it easy.
Mayor, can I add one thing to
yes.
clarify Councilmember John's thing? If additional space is created within those buildings, like they put in a mezzanine and they go through the building division, it gets referred back. They are creating more floor space, more usable floor space, and with that square footage, there is an additional parking requirement. It would need to come back for an amendment with their site plan at that point.
That was my concern then. I think I could live with 105 on those. So I guess if we do get complaints, we need to we need to work with you guys to come and say, we've got an issue.
All right, Clark, go ahead.
Yeah, we're walking a fine line, but I'll put it in a position we can just do an up and down. So, but I think we can make it happen. So that's where I'm standing on that. And again, we're trusting the leaseor and they'll abide by those things as well. So I move to approve the parking reduction request for the commercial site plan for 500 East Auto Mall Drive Business Center Plat B.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
do you have a number of stalls that you will be including in your
105.
motion? Thank you.
Have a motion by-
Since that's what currently exists, I don't.
Have a motion by Councilmember Taylor.
This is a pain in my butt. I love Clark when he gets on his high horse and calls himself a parking Nazi and then goes and makes an adequate.
Parking Nazi's all about residential that I've been talking
is
about
not.
from the beginning, and I said, it's not for you, but it is for me. That's what I just
All right.
stipulated.
I
So
know.
vote no.
Oh, well, no, I get it. I'm just saying, it drives me insane when I've never seen one come in and be like, hey, you know what? We got this use and we just, out of the goodness of our heart. Nobody does it. The cost for a parking stall is $20,000. Nobody's gonna do that just out of the goodness of their heart. They're gonna put, cobble in there and call it landscaping, and that's the benefit. I mean, that's the reality of it. If I don't have to put a parking stall in, I'm not gonna do it. I can put a whole lot of landscape cobble in, a whole lot less expensively than if I put in a parking stall. And that's the reality of it. I don't know if there's even excess ground on this that we could add more stalls. I'm assuming that's not the case. Right? And that's kind of my point. I truly have concern. I actually think the 105 might work. I have, and I guess maybe I'm overstating because we don't even have a second yet.
Let's see if there's a second, because if otherwise.
That's where I was headed, but.
Then.
I can live with 105. I'm still concerned about enforcement, and
Did I hear a second in there?
I'll second it.
All right.
Yeah, I can live with
Okay,
105.
now.
I'll second it that.
Now let's talk a little bit. We have something on the table.
Yeah, so I apologize for taking it so long.
No, you're fine.
This is
No,
just,
right.
No problem with that.
it just, for me, if we see one kid, and I mean this seriously, it's not the kids that'll be the problem. It's the parents who don't have the time. No, I'm not waiting in that line. I'm gonna flip a U-turn right here in the middle of Auto Mall Drive, park on the front curb, and have them run across. That's the best case scenario. The worst case is they park on the right shoulder, because they just turned in front of Maverick, and kids are gonna go streaking across that road, and if we see one kid get hit by a car, I'm gonna lose my absolute mind.
Then vote accordingly, then vote accordingly.
That's my comment,
Okay, all
Mayor.
right, I have a motion and a second, and I'm going to call for a roll call vote. And this is item, I'm going to take, this roll call vote is by random order. Councilmember Hunter.
Thanks for that random order, Mayor.
Appreciate that. I don't set it, it splits it out, so.
I'm opposed, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember John?
I didn't think Ryan's last comment, I mean, I seconded. Ryan's last comment really strikes home though. If we have one kid hit or killed coming across that.
It doesn't matter at this point, really. This needs to be unanimous, or it dies.
It does.
So what's your vote?
Nay.
Councilmember Taylor?
So, little clarification, I'm not for children getting hit.
I
I'm
know
not
you
for
got it.
parents acting like idiots, flipping U-turns in the middle of the road. We have shared parking agreements where we share times when there's flow in and out. I believe this could work. I believe that, it could, and if we needed to come back and there was a usage change, then we could do something about it. So I am not in favor of people driving cavalierly and putting children's lives in danger, but I did believe it can work, and so I vote aye.
Okay. The motion fails, okay? I'm going to have to get with Patrick for maybe the next step, Plan B, whatever it might be. But for tonight, we will have other council members. It feels a little bit, where we have to have a unanimous vote. I'm not saying that is, if that's an option. This is somewhat of a rare thing for us, so get with Patrick, all right? Okay, we'll move on. Item number 3. This was part of our work session last week, and that is review and action on approval of the Library Consortium MOU with Highland City and Pleasant Grove City. Thank you for staying, Cassandra. Is there any other questions about this?
Mayor, I move to approve the city administrator, David Bunker, to sign the MOU for the library consortium.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember John, second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Councilmember John.
Aye.
All right, number 4 is review and action on an ordinance approving a code text amendment known as Stormwater Management and Discharge Controls, amending sections 13.94, and code text amendment plans to modify subsections, and we're going to drop off the last 2. This is a continuation from a item we had at a work session January 21st. It's taken a little while. It's been through the Planning Commission, and Sam's going to explain a little bit about why we're dropping the other 2 right now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so we're bringing forward some code text amendments that were part of Senate Bill 220. Back in January, we talked about House Bill 507 and Senate Bill 220, and we talked about the key differences of those. The reason why we're pulling the 2 pieces out of it, the enforcement and penalties, there was some confusion that we had as we were going through bringing in the text from the Senate bill and then putting in our code. There was a mix-up in there, and both of them, the penalties actually referred to the enforcement, and there was a big piece of that was missing. But mainly, the big reasons why we want to have at least the first 3 brought in is the post-construction, meaning that when someone is going to do work after construction, meaning post-construction, that they're aware that they need to be responsible for any of their runoff to go onto someone else's property. So we'd like to have that in the code, because this time of year, springtime, going into summer, we have some storm events, and people usually call and are wondering why their neighbor's runoff is coming onto their property. Is there anything that we can do about it? So that one piece in there, the 1394070, the post-construction, is pretty important that we have that in there.
And I also like it that it calls that they have to handle their, I'll say, irrigation water.
Yes.
Must maintain it on their own property also.
Yeah, and if you can recall too, one of the biggest pieces of this was the change from the House bill to the Senate bill is we actually were going to go ahead and enact the fact that we could go ahead and stop construction, but the legislature felt like that would be a little bit too heavy-handed, so they were going back to actually imposing fines versus actually stopping construction. So we had to wait until May 7th for that to pass, get signed, and then we can go ahead and enact that. So that's why we waited from January to May. But we just missed a few things between there when we were going through.
I really had a question. I didn't like the way that was worded, but yet I understand. With the stop work order, I questioned Sam and I said, you mean they have to have this and this? And he goes, that's the way the bill is written. I don't like it, but it puts us into the territory that they're going to be cited and fined daily, and it's going to take an awful lot to do a stop work order.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Sam.
On page 74 of the packets, letter C, right in the middle there, management practices which have been demonstrated to effectively. That, in the spirit of Kevin Barnes, can we drop one of the O's in 2?
Hey, I'm glad we have a new one on the council. All right.
We can do that.
I'm just surprised he caught it.
You're surprised I can
I will
read.
never catch those. Sorry.
All right.
Mayor, with that, I move the adoption of the ordinance approving the code text amendment, amending section 13.94 titled Stormwater Management and Discharge Control with instruction to the city recorder to withhold publication of the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record of the May 21st, 2025 Planning Commission meeting have been met.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hunter, second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion?
Mayor,
Yes.
can we just be specific about which provisions of 1394 we're passing tonight? And I can read those off
Yes,
if the
please,
council
please.
would like me to. So the code text amendments will apply tonight are 13.94.020, 13.94.030, 13.94.070.
Right, last two. No.
So do you need me to restate that?
Just.
So I would amend my motion to include the specific amending sections 13.94.020, 13.94.030, and 13.94.070.
And I'll amend my second.
Okay, I have amended motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember John?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mayor.
I have a motion
Second.
by Councilmember Hunter, second by Councilmember Taylor. All in favor said aye.
Aye.
Say aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you. I'm going to sign some paperwork here.
Clark, sorry.
Yes, sir.